My name is Vanessa Rhodes. I'm 33 years old, and last Thanksgiving was the day my entire life cracked open like a porcelain plate hitting the kitchen floor. We were all crowded inside my mother's warm, cinnamon-scented dining room, a place that always felt like a stage where I played the role no one cared to watch. The turkey sat in the middle, steaming, glistening, while everyone buzzed about my younger sister's wedding like it was the royal event of the century. Then my mother, cheerful, bright-eyed, blissfully unaware, turned to me and asked the one question that sliced deeper than any insult I'd ever heard. "So, Vanessa," she said, grabbing another spoonful of mashed potatoes, "your sister's wedding was great. When's yours?" And with every eye turning toward me, waiting, expecting, judging, I swallowed, clicked my fork against the plate, and replied softly, "I had mine." The whole room fell silent. Forks froze. Glasses hovered in midair. Even the jazz music humming from Dad's Bluetooth speaker seemed to choke and die. My mother blinked, confused at first, then almost offended. "What do you mean you had yours?" she asked, whispering like my answer might stain the tablecloth. This was the moment everything began to unravel. The moment the truth I'd hidden for years came face to face with the family who never bothered to ask why I moved the way I did, why I pulled away, why I stopped coming home except on major holidays. And before I dive into how we got here, how I ended up standing in front of my entire family, finally ready to reveal what they failed to notice, I want to ask you, the listener, have you ever been in a room full of people who supposedly love you, yet somehow you've never felt more invisible? If you have, then stay with me. This story is for you. And before we continue, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us we're not alone. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. I didn't grow up the way my sister, Chloe, did. Even though we lived in the same house, breathed the same air, slept under the same roof, we were raised on two different planets. Chloe was the star from the moment she took her first breath. Bubbly, photogenic, musical, talented, loved. I, on the other hand, was born with what Mom called a quiet personality, which was family code for easy to overlook. And overlooked I was. At school, Chloe was the girl teachers wrote recommendation letters 3 years before she even graduated. I was the girl who turned in perfect essays and got silence. At home, Chloe's drawings decorated the fridge. My science fair trophies collected dust on the shelf behind the washing machine because the fridge already has too much on it. I grew up learning how to shrink myself, how to disappear so others could feel bigger. And by the time I reached adulthood, I had perfected the art of invisibility. The only people who ever really saw me were 2 childhood friends and the man I once thought would be my forever. His name was Ethan Blake. I met him at 27 during a work seminar in Austin. He was the kind of guy who had a smile that made you feel like you belonged somewhere. He listened when I spoke. He remembered small details. He looked at me like I wasn't an afterthought or a spare part. For the first time in my life, I felt chosen. Not convenient, not tolerated, chosen. We dated quietly for a year, then loudly for another. Loudly meaning he proposed. I said yes, and we planned a wedding. Small, intimate, nothing like the fairy tale Chloe insisted she deserved. I didn't want a castle, or 100 guests, or a Swarovski crystal-encrusted dress. I just wanted love. That was enough for me. But as I stood there in Mom's kitchen on Thanksgiving, staring at their shocked faces when I said, I had mine, the memory of that wedding, the one they all forgot or pretended not to know about, pressed against my ribs like a bruise that never healed. Because the truth was ugly, painful, and humiliating. My parents didn't come to my wedding. My sister didn't come. My cousins, aunts, uncles, none of them showed up. They all chose not to. And to this day, I'm not even sure which excuse hurt more. We're so busy with Chloe's engagement plans. The timing is inconvenient. Why don't you postpone it so we can all be there? Or the worst one, you're rushing. Maybe this isn't as serious as you think. Ethan and I stood alone in the quiet garden with the minister, 2 chairs, and a photographer who doubled as a witness. I told myself it didn't matter, that the love between us was enough, that family support was optional. But deep down, something inside me cracked that day. And as the months passed, that crack widened. Mom blinked at me across the Thanksgiving table. You had a wedding? When? And just like that, it was as if the memory vanished from her mind. Not misremembered, deleted. Dad frowned. Vanessa, what are you talking about? Chloe raised an eyebrow, swirling her wine glass like she was watching a soap opera unfold. Wait, you're saying you got married? To who? The way she said to who felt like a slap. Like the idea of someone loving me was absurd. My throat tightened. I could have backed down. I could have laughed it off. But after years of silence, something in me refused to remain small. To Ethan, I said quietly, 3 years ago. And the silence that followed was louder than their disbelief. It was as if the walls themselves sucked the air out of the room. My mother's lips parted slowly. Are you joking? Chloe laughed lightly. Mom, she's joking, right, Vanessa? We would have known if you got married. Her words hit me with a force that surprised even me, because she said we would have known like they ever actually asked about my life, like they cared enough to notice anything I did. You did know. I told you, all of you. You just didn't come. Vanessa, my father said, leaning back, I don't recall you ever saying that. Of course he didn't. He never listened. He never saw me. I inhaled deeply. My hands trembled, and I felt every childhood memory of being ignored rising like old ghosts to stand beside me. I sent you the invitation. I texted you the date. I called twice the week before. Mom, you told me it wasn't a good time. Dad, you said work was too busy. And Chloe, my sister's eyes met mine, narrowed. Let's not do this, she muttered. No, I said louder this time. Let's. Because she more than anyone knew exactly what she did. Flashback to the day I told Chloe I was getting married. She was at her favorite brunch spot wearing a pastel dress and bragging about her engagement photo shoot when I showed her my ring. I'll never forget the look she gave me, like I had stolen something that belonged to her. You're getting married? Now? She asked, scoffing. Vanessa, seriously? You're going to overlap with my engagement season? Engagement season, as if her life was a show with specific streaming dates. I remember staring at her, utterly confused. Chloe, what does that have to do with anything? She sighed dramatically. People are already focused on my wedding. Yours will be distracting. Distracting. That word burned into my brain like acid. I thought it was just Chloe being Chloe, dramatic, self-centered, spoiled. But when the RSVPs arrived and every single family member declined, I realized it wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad timing. And it wasn't coincidence. Someone convinced them. And I knew exactly who. Back at the Thanksgiving table, Chloe's face twitched at my accusation, a tiny crack in her perfect facade. You're imagining things. You didn't even have a real wedding. You eloped. I eloped because nobody showed up. Dad cleared his throat. You should have postponed it. For who? People who didn't care? My voice was shaking now, not with weakness, with anger, with years of buried emotion finally clawing its way out. I could feel the heat behind my eyes, the pressure in my chest, the sting of every birthday ignored, every achievement shrugged off, every time Chloe's needs overshadowed mine. You all chose her wedding over mine. You didn't want my marriage to interfere with her spotlight, and that's fine. But don't stand here pretending you didn't know. Mom leaned forward. Sweetheart, nobody meant to hurt you. You didn't mean to, but you did. The air tightened. Someone coughed, a fork clattered. And just when I thought the moment couldn't possibly get heavier, my sister leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and said the words that would change everything. Well, it's not like the marriage mattered, anyway. Didn't he leave you? My body went cold. I felt every heartbeat in slow motion. Because that was the part nobody knew, the part I never told them, the part that destroyed me quietly and completely. My mother covered her mouth. Leave you? What is she talking about? And Chloe smirked, swirling her wine again like she was proud she struck a nerve. Come on, Vanessa. You didn't think we wouldn't hear something eventually. I stared at her, heart pounding, suddenly terrified. How did she know? What did she know? Ethan leaving me was the most painful moment of my life. But the reason he left, that was the real secret. One I thought I buried deep enough that no one, especially my sister, would ever find it. But as I stared at her smug, knowing expression, a horrifying thought crept into my mind. What if she was involved? My mother turned toward me, panicked. Vanessa, what is she talking about? Why would he leave? And Chloe tilted her head, smiling like a cat who just caught the mouse. Should I tell them? She said softly. Or do you want to? My heart dropped. All right, Samson, here comes chapter 2, full emotional depth, psychological tension, perfectly paced, 1650 to 1750 words, no line breaks, no formatting breaks, just pure cinematic storytelling. The moment Chloe asked, should I tell them or do you want to? The room felt like it tilted. It was as if gravity shifted and everything inside my mother's dining room, plates, glasses, even the chandelier overhead, suddenly weighed twice as much. My hands went cold. My tongue refused to move. And the part of me that always let people speak over me, diminish me, or erase me completely, that part froze in fear. Because whatever Chloe thought she knew, whatever she felt bold enough to weaponize in front of our parents, it couldn't be the real truth. That truth was buried so deeply inside me that even the memory of it felt dangerous. But the expression on Chloe's face was too confident, too proud, too certain. And certainty was something Chloe never had, unless she had receipts, proof, or a plan to hurt me. My mother looked between us like she had stumbled into the middle of a movie she hadn't watched from the start. Vanessa, she said, voice thin and shaky, did your husband really leave you? Dad's jaw tightened. He wasn't angry for me, he never was, but he hated surprises, hated anything that disrupted the curated image of our family that he showed to colleagues. I could feel the story tightening around my throat like a rope. Chloe leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes gleaming. Come on, Vanessa. You knew this day would come. Secrets don't stay hidden forever. My pulse throbbed in my neck. She was enjoying this. She was savoring every second. And that told me one thing. Whatever she thought she knew, she believed it would destroy me. But I forced myself to breathe, to steady my voice. You don't know anything, I said softly. Chloe tilted her head, mocking pity. Oh, so he didn't leave you? My stomach twisted. We separated, I said, choosing my words carefully. That's complicated. Please, she scoffed. He left. No need to sugarcoat it. My mom gasped, whispering, Vanessa. But Chloe wasn't done. Maybe they should know why. The room fell into a silence, so sharp it felt like broken glass under my feet. My mother's breath hitched, Dad's eyes narrowed, and for a split second, fear flashed across Chloe's face. Not fear of hurting me, but fear that I might reveal something that made her look bad. Something clicked inside me. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me, she was trying to control the narrative, and that meant she had something to hide. Too. Chloe, I said slowly, how exactly do you know anything about my marriage? She blinked just once, barely noticeable, but enough. People talk, she said. Who? I pressed. Who told you anything? She looked away. It doesn't matter. It does. Because only 3 people knew the truth. Me, Ethan, and the person who made sure our marriage didn't survive. The air shifted. My mother's lips parted, Dad's eyes narrowed, and Chloe's wine glass trembled in her hand, the ruby liquid trembling like it knew the conversation was about to spill over. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "Stop acting like this is some conspiracy." I stared directly into her eyes. "Isn't it?" My voice came out calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes after years of staying silent. Flashback 3 years earlier. 2 months after my tiny garden wedding, Ethan and I were doing well, better than well. He was attentive, affectionate, gentle in ways I never experienced before. He'd make me breakfast on Saturdays. He'd leave notes on the bathroom mirror. He'd ask about my day and listen like my words mattered. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone truly saw me. But one evening, I came home to find him sitting on the couch with an expression I'd never seen. Hurt, confused, guarded. He held his phone like it was radioactive. "Vanessa," he said, "can we talk?" That sentence, the way he said it, stayed burned into my memory. "Of course," I whispered. He handed me his phone. "Who sent this?" And on his screen was a message: "You deserve better than a woman who lies to you. Ask her about the real reason her family wants nothing to do with her. Ask her what she hides. Ask her what she did." My chest went hollow. I I didn't send this. I don't know who. But Ethan wasn't looking at me angrily. He was looking at me like a puzzle piece suddenly didn't fit. "Why does your family treat you like you're separate from them?" he asked carefully. "What am I missing?" I couldn't answer, not because I didn't want to, but because the words were stuck. I'd spent my whole life swallowing the things that hurt me. How do you suddenly explain years of being the forgotten child, the neglected daughter, the shadow behind a golden girl? Ethan squeezed my hand. "I'm not accusing you of anything, but someone is trying to tell me you're hiding something. Is there something I should know?" There wasn't. There never was. My only sin was existing in a family that wished I took up less space. But the message didn't stop there. Whoever sent it kept sending more, each one more poisonous than the last. "Ask her why she married you so fast. Ask her who she used to be. Ask her why she left her old job. Ask her why her parents don't trust her. Ask her why she doesn't talk to her sister." Lies. All lies. But lies delivered with precision. Lies designed to erode trust grain by grain until the foundation cracked. And it worked. Over the next few months, Ethan became distant. Not cruel, just unsure. He questioned things I said. He overanalyzed my tone. He checked my stories. He asked the same questions twice, like he wanted to confirm the truth. Until finally, one night, he said the words that ripped something out of my chest. "I don't know who to believe anymore." He wasn't accusing me. He was pleading with me, begging the universe for clarity. But confusion grew into frustration, frustration into resentment, and resentment into a quiet withdrawal that wrapped around us like smoke. And 6 months after our marriage, he left. He didn't yell. He didn't slam the door. He just placed his ring on the counter and whispered, "I'm sorry. I can't keep trying to untangle what feels wrong." Wrong. That word lived in my ribs for months. But the part that haunted me most wasn't that he left. It was that someone else helped him walk away. Back at the Thanksgiving table, I looked directly at Chloe. I asked her, "Do you know who sent those messages?" Her lips twitched. "I don't know what messages you're talking about." I leaned forward. "Ethan got anonymous texts. The person knew things only someone close would know." "You're paranoid," she spat. "Oh, really?" I asked softly. "Then how did you know he left me?" Chloe's face drained of color. Not much, but enough that if you were paying attention, you'd see the fear flicker. Mom looked horrified. "Chloe, how did you know?" But Chloe didn't answer. She glared at me like she wished she could reach across the table and slap the truth back inside my mouth. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Vanessa, why would someone send your husband messages like that?" "Because someone wanted to break us apart," I said. "Someone who didn't want my wedding to overshadow theirs. Someone who needed to be the center of attention." Chloe slammed her hands on the table. Oh my God, Vanessa, not everything is about me. But this was, I said calmly, wasn't it? Her eyes watered, but not with guilt, with rage. You think I sabotaged my marriage? Are you insane? I think you're capable of more than you pretend to be. My mother looked between us, tears streaming down her cheeks. You girls, what happened to you? I swallowed hard. Nothing happened to us, Mom. This is who we've always been. You just never saw it. Dad shook his head. Let's stop this nonsense. Sit down, eat. This is Thanksgiving. But the truth doesn't wait for holidays to end. It doesn't pause for etiquette. It doesn't shrink just because a turkey is on the table. And Chloe's next words severed whatever fragile thread held the moment together. You don't deserve to blame me because your husband didn't want you, she hissed. Maybe he realized what we all knew. Mom gasped, Chloe, stop. But she didn't. That there's something wrong with you. My body trembled, not with sadness, with fury. Years of silence, years of shrinking, years of swallowing humiliation to keep the peace. And now she dared to say out loud the thing my family always implied but never voiced, that I was the problem, that I was the defect, the burden, the mistake. Say it, I whispered. Say what you've always thought. Chloe's eyes gleamed. Fine. She leaned in, voice cold enough to frost glass. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. You can't stand that I have everything you don't. Love, attention, support, a real marriage. You wanted your little secret garden wedding so you could pretend you were special. But guess what? Nobody cared. The words hit like a hammer, but I didn't break. Not this time. Instead, something unexpected happened. I laughed. A sharp, shocked, painful laugh that echoed through the kitchen. Everyone stared. You think I'm jealous of you? I said, wiping my eyes. Chloe, you don't even realize what you've done, do you? She froze. What are you talking about? I stood up slowly. My chair scraped the floor. The room shifted. The truth rose inside me like a tide finally reaching the shore. The reason Ethan left was because of the messages someone sent him. Messages about a secret. What secret? Dad demanded. I stared straight at Chloe. The one that wasn't mine. Her face turned white. And that's when I said it. The secret was yours. The silence that followed my words was so thick it felt like the walls were holding their breath. Mom's fork slipped from her hand and clattered against her plate. Dad's expression stiffened into something between disbelief and restrained anger. And Chloe, my perfect, adored, untouchable older sister, sat frozen like a statue caught in a spotlight. Color drained from her face. Her fingers twitched. Her jaw clenched and unclenched. She looked like she wanted to speak, but the words got stuck behind the fear widening her eyes. What do you mean? She whispered. Her voice trembled. Chloe never trembled. That was my first confirmation that I wasn't wrong. Not this time. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my gaze locked on hers. I heard you, I said quietly. The messages Ethan received weren't about something I did. They were about something you did. Something someone didn't want exposed. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. Vanessa, stop this. You're making accusations now? I'm stating facts, I replied without flinching. You want the truth? You want the whole picture? Fine, let's paint it. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, but my voice stayed strangely steady. Because for once in my life, I had clarity, sharp and painful like glass, but clarity nonetheless. I turned back to Chloe. Do you remember the night before your wedding? Her eyes darted left, then right. Why would you bring that up? Just answer. She hesitated. Of course I remember why. Because something happened that night, and you've spent the last 3 years praying I never figured it out. Flashback. Chloe's bachelorette party. The night before her extravagant, glitter-sprinkled, choreographed wedding to Daniel. A wedding that cost more than my first car. A party filled with her friends, all of them loud and drunk and excited. Chloe, balanced on stilettos, laughing too loudly, clutching her phone like her life depended on it. I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't invited, actually. But Mom insisted, claiming, you're her sister. It will look bad if you don't show up. I arrived late, stayed sober, and kept to a corner while her friends toasted to the perfect couple. Then, around midnight, I saw Chloe sneak away from the group and step onto the balcony. She was pacing, panicked, talking in harsh whispers. I remember the cold air biting my skin as I stepped outside, planning to tell her mom wanted her back inside. But before I could speak, I heard her hiss into the phone. "Are you insane? You cannot call me again. Do you hear me? If anyone finds out, no, listen. Tomorrow is my wedding. My wedding. You need to forget everything. We never met. We never talked. You don't exist." The voice on the other end was low but audible, male, nervous, pleading. I remember the tone more than the words. "Chloe, please, I just want to know what happens next." She shut her eyes tightly and whispered, "Nothing happens. Nothing. You're not part of my life. You never were." I stepped back before she saw me. I didn't think much of it at the time. Chloe always had drama. She attracted it like perfume. I assumed it was some ex-boyfriend or someone she led on. But now, staring at her across the Thanksgiving table, watching the fear crawl across her features, everything clicked. That phone call, the anonymous messages to Ethan, the fear she showed now, it all fit together like a puzzle suddenly snapping into place.
"Vanessa," Dad said sharply, "you will explain yourself right now." "I am," I said, "just not in the way you expected." I looked at Chloe. "Tell them." "Tell us what?" Mom's voice cracked. I didn't look away from Chloe. "Tell them about the man who called you the night before your wedding." Chloe's entire face collapsed. Mom's breath caught, Dad's jaw clenched. And I knew they had no idea. "What man?" Dad asked, his tone icy. Chloe shook her head violently. "Vanessa is lying. She has always been jealous. She's making this up." "Then explain why your face looks like you saw a ghost," I said softly. Her voice rose. "Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough." "No, you don't," she screamed. The room went eerily still. I leaned back slowly. "Fine," I said. "If you won't tell them, I will." Chloe stared at me with an expression I'd never seen on her. Not anger, not superiority, not fake sisterly concern. Fear. Real fear. The kind of fear people feel when a truth they buried is clawing its way back to the surface. Flashback again. But not the wedding this time. 2 months after Ethan left. I was sitting alone in my apartment, emotionally hollow, exhausted, grieving a marriage that felt stolen rather than broken. I'd ordered takeout and noticed a missed call from an unknown number. Normally, I ignored these, but something, intuition, fate, whatever, made me pick up when the number called again. "Hello?" Silence. Then a shaky breath. Is this Vanessa?" "Who's asking?" I said carefully. "My name is Mark." The name meant nothing. I think we have something to talk about." "About what?" "About your husband and your sister." A cold rush flooded me. "What?" He spoke quickly, like someone who'd been carrying a secret too heavy for too long. He said he knew Chloe, that they used to be close, that she had made him promises before her wedding, promises she never intended to keep. He said he cut him off brutally the night before her wedding. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. "Your husband got messages, right? Messages about you?" My heart thudded painfully. "How do you know that?" "Because Chloe asked me to send them." The room spun. "What do you mean?" "She told me that if I didn't do it, she'd ruin my life. She said she needed to make sure you didn't outshine her wedding. She said you always found a way to steal attention even when you didn't try." I had no words. I remember gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "But I never did anything to her," I whispered. Mark exhaled shakily. "I know, but she needed someone to blame, and she needed someone to obey her." I didn't get more details. Mark cried halfway through the call and hung up. I couldn't reach him again. But the truth stayed. Back in the present, at the Thanksgiving table, I watched Chloe's composure unravel like thread pulled too tightly. Mom whispered, "Chloe, please tell me this isn't true." Tears formed in her eyes. Real tears. Her voice shook. I didn't mean for anything to happen. It was supposed to be small, just annoying. I didn't think he'd actually leave her. Mom covered her mouth. Dad raked a hand over his face in disbelief. I felt everything and nothing all at once. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, confronting her, exposing her, finally getting someone to see how deep the wounds she caused went. But now that it was happening, I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted, like the truth wasn't a weapon. It was a weight. Why, Chloe? Why did you do it? She looked at me through trembling lashes. Because I was stealing your wedding. By what? Getting married quietly months before you? Yes, you always do this. You always take things that aren't yours. Mom and Dad finally cared about something important to me, and then suddenly you show up with your tiny secret wedding like you wanted to be special first. You had your moment and then acted like nothing happened. Do you know how that made me feel? I stared at her. For the first time, I saw not the golden child, not the favorite daughter, not the perfect one. I saw a woman drowning in her own insecurity, a woman who needed to dim me to shine, a woman who believed love was limited, like oxygen, and she had to suffocate me to breathe. Mom burst into tears. Dad looked sick, and Chloe, she just broke. I didn't think Ethan would actually leave you. I just wanted you to feel what I feel when you exist. Her voice cracked. You take attention without trying. I have to perform for it. You walk into a room and people notice. I have to beg. I swallowed hard. Deep down, some part of me expected an apology, a moment of humanity, something resembling remorse. But Chloe wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she was caught. And that realization hit me harder than any betrayal. You ruined my marriage, I said quietly. You took something from me I can never get back. She didn't deny it. Mom sobbed uncontrollably. Chloe, how could you? Dad stood up abruptly and walked out of the room. The front door slammed hard enough to shake the walls. And Chloe sat there, shaking, pale, breath uneven. I didn't think he would go that far, she said in a small voice. But you always get. Don't, I said sharply. Not another excuse. The air felt cold, heavy, lifeless. I stood slowly. My legs trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of everything I'd carried alone for years. What are you doing? Mom asked, voice trembling. Leaving. I've heard enough. Chloe's voice cracked. You can't just walk away. Watch me. But before I could take a step, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message. From an unknown number. My heart stilled. I pulled it out, and when I read the message, every drop of blood drained from my face. Vanessa, it's Ethan. We need to talk. There's something you don't know. When I read the message, Vanessa, it's Ethan. We need to talk. There's something you don't know. Every sound around me vanished. The voices from inside the house, the clattering plates, the laughter falsely stitched together by people who had no idea what storm was about to break, all of it dissolved into a ringing that felt like it came from inside my skull. For one long, suspended moment, I simply stood there on my parents' back porch, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles went white. It didn't make sense. Ethan never texted from unknown numbers. He never used vague messages like this. He hated ambiguity. He always said clarity was his love language, and he stuck to that principle religiously. But this message? This felt like the opening line of a tragedy. And deep in my gut, something told me I wasn't ready for whatever truth he wanted to reveal. I swallowed hard and typed back quickly, my fingers trembling so badly I kept hitting the wrong letters. Ethan, what number is this? Are you okay? I hit send, waited. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then finally, I can't call from my phone right now. Can we talk in person? Please, it's important. Another wave of cold swept through me. Not temperature cold, truth cold. That kind that wraps around your spine and squeezes until breathing feels optional. Why couldn't he call from his phone? Why did he sound scared? I stared at the house behind me. Inside were the people who would celebrate if anything in my marriage fell apart. People who had already decided that I didn't deserve happiness, that anything good in my life was either temporary or a mistake. No, not them, not now. Whatever this was, I needed to face it alone. I typed back, "Where are you?" The response came instantly, as if he'd been waiting with shaking hands of his own. "I'm at home. Please come." I didn't think, I didn't rationalize, I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I just walked off the porch, down the driveway, got into my car, and drove. But the whole way there, my mind was a storm of possibilities, each one darker and more sinister than the last. Did something happen at work? Did someone threaten him? Was he hurt? Was he leaving me? No, Ethan wasn't like that. He wouldn't blindside me. He wouldn't break our vows with a text message from an unknown number. And yet, doubt flickered quietly inside me. Because even good people hide things. Even kind people break under pressure. By the time I pulled into our apartment lot, my heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Every light inside our unit was off. Not dim, not low, off. I rushed up the stairs, unlocked the door, and stepped into a darkness so still it felt alive. "Ethan?" I whispered. No answer. I moved deeper into the living room. My breathing was the only sound. Then, as I rounded the corner toward the hallway, I saw a single faint glow coming from under our bedroom door. I pushed it open slowly, and there he was, sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped, face buried in his hands, his phone beside him, screen shattered. Something inside me cracked open. "Ethan," I said softly. He lifted his head, and the moment our eyes met, my stomach dropped. Because I'd seen that expression before in strangers on sidewalks, in coworkers after HR meetings, and friends after devastating news. It was the look of someone who had aged 10 years in a single hour. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like he wasn't sure I was real. "Are you okay?" I whispered. He exhaled shakily. "No, I'm not." "What happened?" He looked down at his hands, trembling, clenched, exhausted, and then back up at me. "Your family, Vanessa, your family did something." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" I managed. He gestured weakly toward his shattered phone. "Your sister, Brianna, she came here." The air left my lungs. "What? Why?" He rubbed his face again. "She said she wanted to talk. She said she was trying to protect you from something. I shouldn't have let her in, but she sounded desperate, panicked. That alone is a lie. Brianna doesn't panic. She manipulates, and she always sounded desperate when she wanted to create a scene." I sat beside him slowly. "What did she say?" He swallowed hard. "She said you only married me to get a reaction out of your parents." My chest tightened painfully. "What? Ethan, that's not..." He held up a hand, shaking his head. "She said you weren't in love with me, that you told her you settled, that you regretted the elopement." My mouth fell open. "That's insane. I would never..." "She also told me..." He hesitated, voice cracking, "that you're planning to leave me once you figure your life out." I almost laughed from shock. Instead, a hollow sound escaped me, a half scream, half breath. "Ethan, I have never said that, not even jokingly." He nodded faintly. "I know. Deep down, I knew. But she kept insisting she had proof." "What proof?" He pointed to his shattered phone. "She said she had screenshots of messages from you, and before I could even ask to see them, she grabbed my phone and tried to force some app to open. I wrestled it away from her, and it fell. She stormed out when she didn't get what she wanted." My hands flew to my mouth. "Oh my God, Ethan." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low and raw. "Vanessa, why would your sister do this? Why would she show up here and try to destroy our marriage?" And that was when something inside me,
And I mean something deep, something primal, something that had been silent for too many years rose up. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't confusion. This was a pattern, a decades-long pattern. Brianna always got what she wanted, even if she had to break someone else's life to get it. And the moment my marriage became something she couldn't control, approve, outshine, or claim credit for, she decided it needed to be eliminated like a loose thread on the dress of her perfect life. I looked at Ethan, my voice shaking with emotion and fury. She did it because she can't stand the idea that I have something good in my life that isn't about her. He stared at me, eyes dark with hurt. Vanessa, what else has she lied about to you? I closed my eyes. More than I could ever describe in a single breath.
I told him everything, rapid fire, all the things I had swallowed my entire life, how she'd lied about me in school, stolen my opportunities, manipulated my parents, sabotaged relationships, inserted herself into moments that weren't hers. All the subtle humiliations, all the comments designed to make me smaller. Every sick little game she played to stay at the top of a hierarchy that only existed inside her mind and our childhood home. By the time I finished, Ethan looked haunted. "Why didn't you tell me all this before?" he whispered. "Because I thought I could escape it by distancing myself. I thought if I built a quiet life, a healthy life, a loving life, they couldn't reach me." He shook his head slowly. But they did. Silence thickened around us like fog. Finally, he looked at me and said the question that broke me open. "Vanessa, do you want this marriage, truly? Not because of them, not because of running away from them, but because of me." My vision blurred instantly. I reached for him, held his face between my palms, made sure he heard every heartbeat inside my chest when I spoke. "I want you, not as an escape, not as a rebellion, but as my partner, my home, my choice. Ethan, marrying you was the first decision I ever made that had nothing to do with them." His shoulders loosened, his breath shook, and he collapsed into my arms. For a moment, just one fragile, golden moment, we held each other like the world outside didn't exist. But it did, and it wasn't done with us. When he finally pulled back, he wiped his eyes and said quietly, "There's more." My heart jolted. More? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This was shoved under our door. I didn't see it until after she left. My pulse pounded. "What is it?" He handed it to me. I unfolded it, and the moment my eyes scanned the first line, everything inside me tilted. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't even Brianna's handwriting. It was a receipt, a bank receipt, a transfer to my name for $25,000 from my mother. And the memo line said, "So she leaves him." My knees buckled. "Ethan," I whispered, voice cracking, "I've never seen this. I swear on everything." "I know," he said firmly. "I know. But your family, Vanessa, they're trying to break us, and we need to figure out why." I gripped the paper, my hands shaking uncontrollably, my heartbeat slamming like fists against a locked door. Why would my mother pay me to leave my husband? Why now? Why this? What were they hiding? Ethan stood and took my hands. "We face this together," he said. "Whatever they're doing, it isn't over." He was right. Because as we stood there, wrapped in fear and determination, a sudden knock echoed through the apartment. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Ethan and I froze. I turned toward the door, dread curling in my stomach. Then a voice came through. Mom's voice. "Vanessa, open the door. We need to talk, all of us." But it wasn't her tone that terrified me. It was the fact that she didn't sound angry. She sounded afraid. The moment I heard my mother's voice through the door, steady, low, but trembling at the edges, I felt something cold and sharp press against the center of my chest. Ethan and I stood frozen in the dim light of our bedroom, the bank receipt still crumbled in my hand. Outside, I could hear footsteps, more than one set. My mother wasn't alone. "Vanessa," she called again, softer this time. "Please, let us in." Ethan looked at me with a silent question. Do we open it? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of anything. But one thing was clear. Whatever had begun tonight was no longer just family drama or petty jealousy. It was bigger, darker. And the fact that my mother, the queen of keeping up appearances, had shown up at my home unannounced, at night, scared, terrified even, told me this was no longer something I could outrun. I nodded to Ethan. We walked together to the door. I opened it. There she was, my mother, Caroline Rhodes. Usually immaculate, poised, the type of woman who could survive a hurricane without a single hair out of place. But tonight, she looked nothing like that. Her hair was slightly messy, her eyes red, her makeup smudged just barely, enough that only a daughter who'd studied her face for decades would notice. Behind her stood my father, jaw clenched, eyes darting around the hallway like he expected to be ambushed. And behind him, of course, was Brianna. Arms folded, chin lifted, expression unreadable. A storm in human form. "Can we come in?" my mother asked quietly. Ethan stepped forward, blocking the entrance just a little. Protective, steady, a silent warning that their access to me was no longer automatic. I placed my hand on his arm. "It's okay." He moved aside reluctantly. They entered in slow, heavy silence. My mother sat on the couch like someone too tired to pretend. My father stayed standing, pacing slightly. Brianna leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed like she was ready to play defense in a game she'd already won. I stayed near Ethan. Finally, I spoke. "What do you want?" My mother inhaled sharply, like she was bracing for impact. "We didn't come here to fight." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Then why are you here? Why did you send money to me with a note telling me to leave my husband? Why did Brianna try to destroy my marriage? Why did you?" "Because we were trying to protect you," my father said suddenly. "Protect me? From what?" I stared at him. "Protect me from what, Dad?" He looked away. My mother closed her eyes, exhaled, then opened them again slowly, as if she had finally accepted something she'd been resisting for years. "Because Ethan's family has been hiding something." I blinked. For a second, I thought I misheard. "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked, startled. My mother turns to him, her voice steady but filled with dread. "Your father, Robert, his past." Ethan stiffened. "This isn't about him," he said sharply, but my mother shook her head. "This is exactly about him." Something shifted in the room. The air grew heavier, denser. Suddenly, this wasn't about petty rivalry or jealousy or family politics. This felt like stepping into the center of a long-buried secret. I walked slowly to the coffee table, trying to anchor myself. "Just say it," I whispered. "Say whatever it is." My mother looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, fear mixed with regret. "Your father and I only found out 3 months ago," she began. "Before your wedding. We weren't sure if we should tell you then, or wait, or hope it wouldn't affect you." "Tell me what?" I snapped. She swallowed hard. "That Ethan's father was involved in the financial collapse of your grandfather's company 20 years ago." Everything went still. My mind blanked. I heard the words, but they didn't land. Couldn't land. "My grandfather's company," I whispered. "Rhodes Industries, that shut down when I was a kid?" My father nodded. "Yes, that wasn't a collapse," I said slowly. "It was a crime. Someone deliberately sabotaged the company. Someone stole funds, erased files, lied to investors." My mother nodded. "And that someone," she said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "was Ethan's father." I staggered backward. Ethan stood frozen, staring at her like she'd spoken a language he'd never heard before. "That's impossible," he said, barely audible. "My father was a junior accountant back then. He didn't have access to corporate accounts. He didn't even know." My father added quietly, "He was the whistleblower." Ethan turned to him sharply. "What?" My father nodded. Your father reported it. He discovered what the executives were doing. He tried to stop it. My mother added, and for doing the right thing, he was framed for the entire thing. The room felt like it spun. Ethan sat down abruptly, as if his legs gave out. I stared between my parents, my voice hollow. Why? Why didn't you ever tell me this? My mother's eyes filled. Because the truth was buried. Your grandfather believed the lie. He blamed the wrong man. And by the time the truth came out, it was too late. The damage was done, the company was gone, our family was in ruins. My father whispered, almost to himself. And he died thinking the wrong person destroyed his legacy. A heavy silence washed over the room. I suddenly understood everything. Why my parents never fully accepted Ethan. Why my mother panicked when I married him quickly. Why they interfered. Why they tried to break us apart. It wasn't because they thought I was settling. It wasn't because they didn't trust Ethan. It was because they were haunted by a ghost of a tragedy that Ethan's father had been unfairly tied to. But understanding didn't erase the damage they'd caused. So you tried to sabotage my marriage, I said quietly, because of something that happened 20 years ago?